Hi, this is Justin Smith, and we're well underway in the Listen Now campaign, thanks to Tobin Brothers Funerals. This is a terrific initiative by Tobin Brothers who want us to have more conversations, better conversations around mental health. Don't forget to follow us on the hashtag Listen Now on all the social media platforms. I wanted to catch up with Les Twentyman. Les is a very well-known face and has been working with young people for decades now. I wanted to talk to him about how things have been going through this COVID lockdown period, how he's going, and some of the work that he's been doing. Well, I've got to say it's a real treat to sit here virtually with Les Twentyman. Hello, mate. Good to see you.
G'day, Justin. Good to see you.
Hey, this
long time no see.
It has been a long time, and I guess that's one of the whole points of everything too, isn't it? It's so long since we get to be in a room with people we like and people we love. You know, it's just a really brutal time. Have you ever seen anything like this?
No, not at all. And I'm quoted in the Herald Sun on Sunday about kids that were joining fight clubs because they're not at school, they're not playing team sports, and they're just, at risk of coming together in antisocial behaviour. Is
it just the isolation that we're seeing at the moment that is bringing this out in people?
Look, that's part of it. The other part is also some kids who are in very difficult or dysfunctional families. They're stuck at home where previously they'd be at school and maybe forming networks of positive activities and friends and things of that nature. And of course, that's been pulled from under them, and now they're sadly grouping together. Particularly noticed in the past few months of girls who are getting involved in fights, setting other girls up by basically cyber or social media, and people turn up and next minute there's 7 or 8 people there and they get bashed and they get robbed of their telephones and their computers and things like that. It's no, I've never seen it as bad as that in the 40 odd years as a youth worker and school teacher.
I mean, is it easy too for a kid from what you would consider to be a very stable environment, where they just think, oh, just to hell with it,
Yep.
It just they don't have the maturity yet to think that this is going to end, or we hope, fingers crossed that it will all end soon. Are you seeing that play out as well?
Yeah, and in fact, our youth workers had a meeting last week that I sat in on, and they were talking about percentages that have gone up, such as alcohol and drug use has gone up by 100%. Kids carrying weapons has gone up by 60 to 70%, and all those sort of things that we've been trying to combat. I mean, we came up with a program 3 years ago. We were worried about kids being suspended and expelled from school. And from my old days as a school teacher and a youth worker, we found that the best way to keep kids out of gangs and out of crime is to keep them in class. We got to think we use as keep kids in classrooms and out of courtrooms. Now, because all this has come about, the efforts of us trying to get kids back to school previously is now complicated, because when the schools reopen, it's going to be very difficult for those kids who find school a traumatic experience anytime to re-enter. So the fact that they've got fractured education and maybe other issues around learning and that sort of stuff, this is going to unfortunately see an explosion in youth crimes.
Yeah, so Les, if we see, if we know of children that and young people that are really starting to feel it at the moment, and COVID, they can't see that end in sight, and they are running off the rails, to use a shocking cliche. What do we do about that? How do we make that first contact and have those first conversations with them?
Well, in the Herald Sun on Sunday, I said that the state government should be funding every one of the youth agencies that have got a program called YSS, which is Youth Support Services. Now, we've got 3 workers, and there's probably 12 agencies. We need each of those agencies another 60 workers, so we can get into those families and work with the the young person, their family, the school, and the winners are the community because they're not out there getting into trouble.
Putting social work to one side, how do you reach out to people if you see somebody, even just a mate of yours, no one perhaps involved in the foundation, but if you see a mate of yours, how do you get out there and talk to them?
Well, I get a lot of calls because of having a profile, but I can't deal with everyone. But I've got 2 youth workers with me that have been with me for 40 years, Jim Markowski and Richard Tregear. Now, we run a basketball club it was called the Redskins, but we've had to change the name because of political correctness. It's called the 96ers. Now, we've got 3 kids, one only left on Sunday over in America playing basketball. And they're the sort of, at one stage we had 26 kids over there. So those little successes really permeate right through the youth work department. I was at a Masonic Lodge a couple of years ago, and there was about 3 or 4 clubs there. And they donated $25,000 to us. Anyhow, one of the guys there in his tuxedo and came over and said, "Look, Les, I just want to thank you because I was homeless 19 years ago. My youth worker brought him to our back to school program where he gave him all the books, and he was so excited, went back to school, ended up getting a scholarship to Oxford University in England, and he graduated as a mathematician and now runs his own artificial intelligence." And then another only a few months ago, I was with my wife at a restaurant, and I heard the people speaking to this young person about his brand new Mercedes-Benz out the front. And it was something worth about $250,000 or whatever. And as I was about to leave, he turned around and said, "Oh, look, I just want to thank you, Les, that I was off the rails in a gang at 15, and we came to your agency, and Richard got me all the school books. I went back to school." Now, this guy runs offices in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and one in London, where he sells all the wigs and gowns for the lawyers and all that sort of stuff. And he's a multi-millionaire. So little stories like that sort of, as I said, it permeates and it stimulates and gives you that buzz.
Well,
and
look, I think you touch on something really important there, which is just trying to help people out where you can. I mean, because it might be something kind of small, with helping a neighbor or even just help with a text message or a phone call. But some of those tiny things become very big things quite quickly, don't they? I think so.
Yeah,
anyway.
Look, I often tell a story about being in a hotel in Williamstown some years ago, and there were 3 guys having a chat they were older than me, and but I knew them through cricket. Anyhow, one of them said, "Oh, those bloody kids out there in that skateboard, they nearly knocked old Billy out over last night when he was leaving to go home." And I said, "Have you just spoken to him?" They said, "Oh, no, the same kids leave their bikes up against my shop window, and I go out to tell them, get rid of those bikes, people can't see, and they tell me where to go." So anyhow, I just snacked out, saw the kids and said, "Look, fellas, some of the old people are a bit worried about being rolled over and that sort of stuff." And the kids said, "Okay, Les, we'll just go up the road." So I come back in and having a drink, and listen, this guy, Hal Walker, his name was, he said, "I can't hear those kids on the skateboard." I said, "No, they've moved." He said, "What do you mean they moved?" I said, "I went out and told them what you said." And they said, "No worries."
Yeah.
So only some months later, I'm there, and he said, "Oh, Les," he said, "it's amazing. The next day they had the bikes up against my window. I went out and I said, 'Look, fellas, it's really hard at the moment. Your mind just moving." They said, "No worries, mate." Anyhow, about a year later, I'm at a footy game, and he was there with some of his mates from the country. He called me over and he said, "This is the man that changed my life, because he taught me that to talk to kids with respect, and that they'll respect you." And so I often say when people ask me what can they do, and exactly what you said, Justin, that is, there may be someone in your street, you think, "Oh, is that kid been fed enough, or is he cold?" And you're not empowering, but you're showing a concern. And
But there also might, that's great. It's a good story, because there also might be a person that you think is a dickhead, you know, and has no respect for anybody else. Yet you haven't made that, you haven't taken the time to reach out to them, to tell them what you're thinking, to see what, you know, you get back. Because it could be just an entirely different situation to what you thought it was. So, you know, and look, that can only amplify, that can only get worse, you know, during something like, you know, the isolation that we're going through at the moment. You know, your mind starts ticking over and you start thinking, those bastards next door, you know, I bet you they don't care about this, they don't care about that, whatever. And you just make it worse in your head. I think it's a really good story. It's a really important one.
Well, another one was some years ago, a school, Maribyrnong Secondary College, had this young Somalian boy who was causing a lot of trouble at school, and the school's also near High Point Shopping Centre. And the school said, "Oh, Les, we've got this kid. Can you get involved and see what you can do?" And I said, "Oh, okay." So I met with this young boy. His name was Mohammed. And anyhow, I met with him about 10, 11 times, and I wasn't going anywhere. And I get a phone call from Jeannie Pratt, who I knew quite well because she was on the board of Open Family when I worked there. And Jeannie said, "Les, we're bringing Muhammad Ali to the 1998 grand final." And he's expressed an interest in meeting kids that are either homeless or in boxing clubs. Can you help us out? I said, "Yeah." I said, "I've got a refuge in Sunshine where we house 8 homeless kids." So I said to this young boy, Mohammed, I said, "Mohammed, if you go back to school for the rest of the semester and stay out of gangs, I'll take you to meet Muhammad Ali." And he looked at me and says, "Oh, bullshit." I said, "Okay." So anyhow, he went back to school. So the morning comes of the grand final. So I go to our refuge with our bus. I pick up 6 homeless kids there. And I go around to Muhammad's place to pick up him and his brother. And they both walk out with tuxedos on. I said, "Boys, we're going to the footy, not to a wedding." And he said, "No, we're going to meet the most famous man in the world." So anyhow, and remember, these kids, these African kids, when they were escaping the war, there were 16 of them. They saw both their parents beheaded,
Yeah.
and their nanny, so they had a lot of trauma.
Mm.
So up comes Muhammad, shuffles up to me and says, he said, "Les, pleased to meet you." And I said, "Oh, it's a great honour to meet you." And so anyhow, I turned around and I said, "Muhammad, meet Muhammad." And he just looked back, made a bit of a smile. And you wouldn't believe it, his brother's name was Ali. So I said, "Muhammad, meet Ali." So he looked back and we both had a laugh.
Yeah.
But some years later,
He would have loved that.
I'm in a shopping centre and this kid comes out, this African kid, sees me and he rushes towards me. And I thought, geez, I hope he's not in the Apex gang or whatever. So he comes and he starts hugging me. He said, Les, it's Muhammad, it's Muhammad. I go, "Oh, how are you, mate?" He said, "I'm now 30. I've got a 9-year-old son. And every time I see you on TV, I tell my son, that's the man that changed my life." But it wasn't, obviously, it was Muhammad Ali. But that one little fact changed the kid from probably being in and out of jail or even dead.
Mate, it's been and it's been really good communicating with you, mate. It's great to see your face. I look forward to you know, having a latte with you or something else to your desire when things are things calm down a bit.
Well, we've got a documentary being made at the moment called Embrace, A Right to Belong, and it's going to include all these kids that, you know, that have come over as refugees and now fitted into our communities and succeeding, like the Asian boy with the wig shops and, you know, Muhammad with the Muhammad, that sort of stuff. So, yeah, we're trying to do our bit that basically, if you're not part of the solution, then you're definitely part of the problem, and we want to be part of the solution.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, mate. Look, people can, you know, we've got the website up there of the foundation if people want to know more about it. But keep doing what you're doing, mate. And
on you, Justin.
These are brutal times, but it's good to have people like you in them. Thanks, mate.
Good on you, Justin. Thanks, mate.